Hey folks, MasakoX here. Now during this month, we're going to be undertaking something that people have been clamoring for since I started this story here about Videl becoming way more than she was in the original series. Despite the ingredients and potential already being there in spades, it was just sadly wasted. Here though, we're going to be looking at Chi-Chi and what she could offer had she gone through training, which was more in keeping with the likes of Goku and the other Turtle School affiliates. What if she trained like Goku and became way more than she was in the original story, and actually got to do stuff? In the last part, we covered the 21st Martial Arts Tournament and saw what Chi-Chi could do in it. She did pretty well. She managed to get to the semi-finals and fought Goku, but sadly couldn't outdo the Monkey Boy due to his sheer power and innate ability. But she gave it a very spirited go, and held in there far longer than she did in the original when they fought in the 23rd contest. And by the way, those saying that, oh, Chi-Chi wouldn't have a power level of 60, well, think about who she's the daughter of. Ox King, 900. I know people think, oh, it's just a movie pamphlet, why would you take it seriously? It's my headcanon, it makes total sense, and it's hilarious. So I'm rolling with it. As for the Red Ribbon Army arcs, they didn't really add much to her story in that she was more of a sidekick to Goku, but she did ensure that Bora's life was saved from Tao's power, and the Dragon Balls were then used to bring back all the other people affected by the organization, once they've been taken down. But the real big divergence here that starts to show itself is when we get to the 3 years of wilderness training that Roshi had in store for his students. Goku heads off with gusto, since that was basically what he was doing before he met anybody. But for Chi-Chi, that didn't seem right, and Baba had also convinced her to stay behind at the palace, train with her in the magical arts, complementing her martial arts training to create something better perhaps. Something that could stand out more than just being another pair of hands in the battlefield. Not to blend in, as it were. So let's cover that part, shall we? So you see, this Chi-Chi will diverge from the Breakfast Club Chi-Chi. There you go, just like that. Once Goku and the others had gone on their way to train on their lonesome, Chi-Chi found her next step in training to be much more difficult. She was now basically on her own, with no idea of how to use magic. She was back to square one. Baba, however, was keen to not let her morale wane, especially when the check for her services earlier had cleared thanks to Ox King's coffers. Now that she knew the girl came good with the money, she started her training by looking into Chi-Chi's very soul.
I will be blunt with you, kiddo. I am not going to be teaching you to fight and do cool light show tricks like my brother would. That is not how I operate.
Chi-Chi looked a little put out at this revelation.
Oh, well then what can you offer?
Baba looked irritated.
I already told you! Tap into what you already have and then some! Really bring forth your inner beast and use it to overpower your enemies, as well as call upon divine energy from outside of your body. Think of it as like a helping hand from an unseen friend.
Chi-Chi looked amazed. Perhaps she might be able to develop her own adaptation of the Turtle School style, one based around magic and their martial arts. Also, spending time in a castle in the desert was much better sounding than sticking it out in the middle of some forest, just figuring it out on your own. She couldn't go back to Ox King though, him having been instructed by Roshi to not accept her back if she were to go back home until her training was over. The months that followed were arduous, but in a different way. Baba spent most of her days trying to make Chi-Chi look into herself, pull out some kind of magical spiritual animal that could act as her force. It was tough going, but things came to a head one day when Chi-Chi got so mad and frustrated at her lack of progress seemingly, that a wild and angry bull, covered in flames, could be seen darting across the square outside of the main atrium. Baba spotted it, running circles around a screaming girl, Chi-Chi, and was astounded at the sight and size of it. She had no idea that so much anger and rage was nestled within that one. Then she recalled who she was related to. She was the daughter of the Ox King. Oh, okay, now that made sense. She had not seen Chi-Chi angry before either, but now she had. This made things so much easier, she thought. One night, when they were eating after a day's worth of training, Chi-Chi asked Baba why she had never trained properly any other of Roshi's students before her. She cackled and took a drink before answering.
Like I said before, most of Brother's students were devoid of personality. Meathead jocks or complete weirdos with no hope of functional conversation. You're the first gal that crossed his path either, and I saw something in you. Besides, I couldn't bear the idea of you being left alone out in the sticks with no support. Not that you need it or anything, but...
She trailed off before she could also mention that the money was appreciated too. Chi-Chi looked down at her food. I see. Would you ever do this again?
Probably not. Consider this a one-time thing. Whilst you're nice to be around, this doesn't change my overall notion that martial artists are simple creatures. I want you to have a leg up over them. Now that I know that it's possible, that scratch has been well and truly itched. This is not for me in the long run. She took a swig of her drink. But that doesn't mean I'm going to half-ass it with you. There's another one of those tournaments coming up, and I predict with my crystal ball you'll do well in it, if you stick to our regime.
Chi-Chi looked excited. She knew that Baba was a divination master, so that had to account for something. With this in mind, Chi-Chi spent the days preparing her mind with Baba, learning to tap into her magical wells as well as a little bit of telekinesis to work with said magical energy. At night, she would then hone her martial arts skills and recall her Kamehameha basics with Goku. Every night, she would get better and better, to the point where at one day, she fired off the perfect energy blast straight into Baba's wall. And Baba immediately got onto the blow with Ox King and asked for reparations. But still though, this level of improvement was something to ease the pain of damaged property. And on top of that, Chi-Chi was able to call upon her inner bull more often to strengthen her attacks, her fists covered in flames and her eyes bulging out with concentration and inner rage. Her internal angst from later years, as we see as her being an angry mother, was now being manifested here into her abilities, channeling them in a means that normal life from then on would be far less stressful. She had an outlet, which was put to good use. She was able to use ki and magic together, and whilst it didn't mean she became stronger than Goku, it certainly gave us something that Goku couldn't counter. Sometimes, that's all you need. 3 years of this. It had been 3 years of it. 3 years of magical education and self-sustaining martial arts for the girl. She had grown up and relaxed considerably. She hadn't realized that she had so much inner rage and anger just waiting to be released. As we know later in life, she has spades of that. It had been so heartening to find a way to use it, instead of lashing out at others unnecessarily. Whilst her strength and power level hadn't leapt up like crazy, that didn't matter too much. She had gotten physically stronger from her nighttime training, yes, but the magical tutelage and fireball powers could really come in handy as well. She also realised she needed some new clothes since her turtle school gi was getting a little bit small for her, battered and torn after all of the training with magic and Baba's monsters for the final test, which she had of course passed with ease because she had magic, they didn't. Baba thought for a moment. Indeed. I can't have you busting out of your garb. How about this? With her magic materialization technique, Baba transformed Chi-Chi's tight and worn gi into a brand new set. But a slight difference. It still carried the Turtle School emblem, but this time instead of it being orange, it was black, with the red armbands, belt, boots and undertop. This to reflect Baba's robes and hat. And it also had a little bit of swish at the bottom, sort of like her 23rd garb, from lower down. I can't wait to see Brother's reaction. Chi-Chi was amazed. This truly felt like something unique, whilst remaining true to Roshi's wise training. A nice mixture of the two arts that she was now adept in. Thank you, Baba. I'll never forget your kindness. Good. I shall never forget your deep pockets. Deep maturity and gusto. Seems like you'll need it. She pointed over to the other end of the courtyard. There was Goku. After 3 years, he had returned. For her. Goku! Chi-Chi said with delight and gave him a big hug. Well, she hadn't realized how he had remained basically the same height as when he had left while she had gotten taller, so he got a face full of chest, but this being Goku, he was completely and totally clueless about it and just took the hug at face value. Good to see you, Chi-Chi. How long have you been here? Chi-Chi then explained how she had spent her entire time of training here, and Goku was intrigued, albeit a little sad to see that she hadn't gone on her own exciting journey.
Really? You were okay just staying here with an old lady?
I learned a lot, Goku. I can't wait to show you. It pleases me that you came back for me.
She blushed and held Goku's hand.
I appreciate it.
Oh, I came here to ask Barbara if she had seen Nimbus.
Chi-Chi before would have been angry, but she wasn't so mad about that now, thanks to her therapeutic training.
Oh? What for?
The 22nd tournament's coming up, and I'm ready for it.
Chi-Chi then lit up. This was her chance to show off what she could do in front of her future husband.
Awesome! Count me in!
Goku beamed.
Yeah, it's gonna be great!
With that, Goku requested Baba to get back Nimbus for him, after Roshi had previously confiscated it for the purposes of his training, so he and Chi-Chi could head for Papaya Island together. Before they left, Baba gave Chi-Chi a hug and whispered,
"Now we're even. Go knock 'em dead, kiddo."
And they set off. On their way, Goku explained his adventures, which included his meeting with Tenshinhan and Chaozu, to which Chi-Chi found thrilling. She hadn't heard from anybody else in years, having spent her time mostly with Baba, thusly not privy to communications from outside, other than maybe the occasional field trip to the city, for Baba's own sake, which she caught up with Bulma and had the odd day out. Baba was also keen to have some respite.
I may be my brother's sister, but I know how to paint the town red every now and then.
But these happened not all that often to make it special. When the two made it to Papaya Island for the prelims, they found Krillin and Yamcha, who have trained also, as well as Jackie Chun, to which Goku was really keen to beat this time around. When there, Roshi in his Chun disguise notices Chi-Chi's new getup. It's interesting. It's not that familiar shade of orange, and it still had his logo on it. Either way, he was glad to see she had grown up. No, resist, Roshi! Sure enough, the prelims are a cakewalk for everybody, and Chi-Chi takes Manuel's spot in the roster, and this means we get a chance for her to fight Jackie Chun. Fortune favouring Roshi's curiosity, so it would seem. Little did he know that Baba was there, having come in secret to watch Chi-Chi and what she had cooked up during their time together, and also to see her brother failing perhaps. And at first, things seemed quite standard. Roshi had noted that Chi-Chi had improved during her time away, but it wasn't leaps and bounds stronger like Goku seemingly. But that was just to lull him into a false sense of security. Once she had gotten a read of Chun's movements, she then unleashed the fireball within her. Punches and kicks laced with magical energy worked hand in hand with her physical power to really throw Chun and Roshi for a loop. He couldn't understand any of this. Where this sudden boost of power came from. It wasn't coming from her innate ki. That had remained relatively steady, albeit a little bit fired up maybe. Now this, though, everything else? That was interesting, borderline suspicious. Where could she have learnt this from? In a moment for a breather, he looked to the audience and spotted a small pink-haired lady hovering on a crystal ball, blowing a raspberry at him. Baba. Of course. Now it all made sense. Well, he had to do his best to stay in the ring, but it wasn't easy. Her sorcery enhancements to her martial arts were too much for the old man to handle in the long run. He had never seen such a blend of techniques in one place. And in the end, Chi-Chi resorted to her telekinesis to pull Chun's legs off the ground before sending him flying out of the ring with, quite aptly, a mini Kamehameha. Just enough to propel him out, but not injuring him. Too much. Whoa. Chun was left floored. This also made Goku gaga for Chi-Chi. Incredible! She could do that? Now he was even more excited to fight her later. However, we would get to Tenshinhan fighting her first. Having bested Chun in the previous round, Chi-Chi felt amazing. She felt she could deal with this Crane School guy, and from what Goku had said, he didn't seem all that menacing. But she had only taken this from Goku's point of view. In reality, Tenshinhan was fierce, cunning, absolutely terrifying an opponent. He sort of reminded her of Mercenary Tao back in the day, and despite her magical enhancements, Tenshinhan could counter these, and when he then used his solar flare, Chi-Chi didn't anticipate that, he used it to do the classic knee dive on the back of Chi-Chi's head, knocking her out. The crowd were horrified to see such barbarism on a young girl, but the Crane student didn't care. So much for that Turtle School loser, he thought. Goku and Chun were aghast as well, with the former extremely determined to fight this cruel sneak next. When Chi-Chi came to, she realized that she had lost despite her power. Even though she had all this talent, she had forgotten Roshi's idea of not getting cocky, that someone out there will be stronger than you. She had done though, and Roshi was keen to point this out later once she had been debriefed. In the meantime, the rest of the tournament plays out like it does in the original, with Goku indeed getting to Ten Shinhan in the final, and sadly the latter winning the contest despite it being even closer this time out, with Goku all the more determined to win after what he had seen happen to Chi-Chi. Like in said tome, Ten Shinhan's demeanour starts to soften a bit after he starts to see the gelling of the Turtle School crew, and how their egos were relatively modest. Well, I mean, except for Chi-Chi's of course, but that would lessen in time. He makes his peace with Goku, and they all have dinner together later. This time out though, they're all together, including Krillin, since he too is keen to hear how Chi-Chi had gotten her new techniques, so he doesn't die. But things take a sudden twist though, when Goku has to leave to go to the loo. The restaurant facilities are sadly out of order, so he has to go to the ones back at the main tournament grounds. There, lying in wait, is Tambourine. And before Goku can react, with the need to go to the loo not helping, he is set upon. Back in the eating hall, Roshi can sense something off, and compels he and his students to check it out. When they get to where he could last sense Goku's energy, they find him there, dead. Chi-Chi falls to the ground, sobbing her heart out. Even Ten Shinhan is saddened by this sudden loss. The person he had fought earlier had been taken out from what looked like a dishonourable means of felling. Roshi then spots something Oolong had handed him, the emblem of King Piccolo. Something he never wished to see again after what happened all those years ago. He knew this was serious, and when he found out that a Dragon Ball Goku had on him, plus a list of the tournament competitors had been taken, things were looking bleak. In this timeline though, Chi-Chi doesn't immediately head off in pursuit, but she still lets her anger out. A blaze of red-hot flame engulfs both her and Goku, her trying to use her magic to bring him back. She knew that Barber could do this, bring people back from the dead, albeit fleetingly. Perhaps that carried over to her, but to no avail. This moment, within the giant blaze, Chi-Chi picks Goku up and wails a deep and guttural wail. The Dragon Balls were now more important than ever. And that's where we're going to be leaving things for right now. So what do you folks think? Do you think things could work out if Goku is out of commission? How can Chi-Chi and the others work out a plan to stop King Piccolo? Leave a comment below and let's get this discussion going. And I will see you in the next video. Catch you later.